All righty, folks, we are live. And for old school gamer, I would like to point out that that is how you effectively start your live stream and not talk for several hours with your AI girlfriend before realizing that you're not actually audible. So, as we let people filter in here, we're going to go ahead and touch on a little bit of the news. Just some of the stuff that's floating around here, a few little ideas and thoughts while I wait for a couple of folks to hopefully show up and populate my chat and say hi. But and then we'll get into the topic du jour. And I do have a guest, not a scheduled interview guest, but somebody to help talk on the topic who is in a position to have some thoughts on it. And of course, I already got OGGM here in the chat, and he is part of this project as well. He's one of the designers that I spoke to about it. So let's talk a little bit. Big things. Get the old Luke Gygax WotC apology tour rocking along. Here's the thing, guys. I'm going to say something that might be a little bit controversial here. Might have somebody here that is, something that's going to be maybe lose me some fans in the OSR a little bit. But this is the time for grace. This is the time for stepping back. This is not the time for opening your wallet and buying whatever WotC puts out. But this is the time for stepping back and looking. You got a new guy in charge, and Dan Ayub. You've got them making some changes. No, they have not gotten rid of the McKenzies and the Connies and whatnot that they need to fire yet. But as Professor DM was saying in one of his videos earlier, that a lot of the signals that they're sending right now are pretty decent. And the number one thing they need to do is send out the memo that informs their game designers that the directive of the day is shut up. It is shut your mouth, because the biggest problem Wizards of the Coast could have right now is that they make some changes, they make some adjustments, they bring back some things that are what we like. They bring back some things that bring the older player base back into the fold, and maybe have some products for your old grognard style gamers and whatnot. And then they have it get crapped all over because one of these design leads or module writers that they hired during the late 5e days decides to get on X and flap their gums about something that is neither Dungeons nor Dragons. And that needs to be the first thing. But one of the big things about companies, actually this kind of plays off of it right here from our good buddy here, Crap Phone 7744. Which, by the way, you had corned beef tonight. I'm jealous, man. I can't eat meat right now until I can eat meat on Friday, and I can eat meat on Sunday. But until the end of Lent, I'm stuck with fish. But Hasbro is a company, not a person. Feelings don't matter here. If they make a good product, I'll buy it. Since they're not making a good product right now, I don't. And that is, in a way, correct. That does play into what I was just about to say as far as them being a company. And that is that companies are amorphous. They change, they fluctuate, they move around they move around. They have more people in them. People leave, people come back. You end up punishing the new people for what the old people did. Professor DM made a comparison. He said, what D&D is to the TTRPG world is D&D is they're the vanilla. They're the generic. They're the baseline. They are the Budweiser. If they were a beer, they would be Budweiser. The cheap, unobjectionable, throw it in the cooler, and just about everybody can look at it and be like, okay, it's a beer. I laughed at that because I'm like, yes, they are like Budweiser. They had a well-established brand, and then they decided to slap Dylan Mulvaney on their can and wondered why they pissed off everybody who drank their beer. So They have spent, only with Watsy, it's even worse. They have spent the past 10 years slapping Dylan Mulvaney on their can and telling you that the new Dylan Mulvaney in a bikini can is one that you should buy unless you're some kind of a istphobe. And they have just periodically pissed off everybody. Because if they didn't piss you off politically, they pissed you off socially. If they didn't piss you off socially, they pissed you off by ruining the game. Because they turned their product into something that catered towards tourists. And I mean that in the sense of people who came in because it was a hot new thing. It was it was the new social cause. It was the new vehicle for social push, et cetera, et cetera. They didn't really want to play the game. So they needed something that was just idiot simple and really just kind of had the trappings. But now they've started to try and turn that direction. So if they start putting out products that are respectful of the old school, if they prove that the whole apology to Luke Gygax and the recognizing Ed Greenwood and the bringing Weiss and Hickman back into the fold for the new Dragonlance book, if they do all that stuff, and then they, we're talking 8-9 months, I think, at minimum down the line, maybe even a year or two down the line, they show that yes, they have made that change, then I don't see any reason not to support them again, because the people that we didn't support, a large number of them are gone. Now we do have some issues there because there's a lot of them that are not gone, and we'll just see how that plays out. Because we unfortunately live in this world where everything's immediate, and there is a very, very good chance that what ends up happening is Wizards of the Coast comes out and 3 months from now they say, well, our quarterly profits didn't spike after we apologized to Luke Gygax at GaryCon. So apparently that didn't work. We're going back to the Rainbow Mexican Orc Brigade. However, we shall see. And there are plenty of folks like our buddy, the OGGM here right there. Nothing they do or say will ever bring me back unless they pay me, which ever the mercenary for OGGM. But that's kind of where I am on it, is I'm going to be cautiously watching to see if maybe they did kind of learn their lesson, because one of the brilliant things is that a corporation can change direction. And, what has Budweiser done ever since they put that stupid can out? They have been bending over backwards to prove that they are not they are not that anymore. They've been bending over backwards to trying to apologize to their base of blue collar drinkers who were not fond of the Broadway crossdresser. And then they're going on the Super Bowl putting out commercials with Clydesdales helping eagles learn how to fly, and farmers spitting tobacco out and getting a tear in their eye over seeing the eagle fly, because they're desperate to say, look, we know we screwed up. How much can we go back? And it's like, well, you know what? Crack open a bud if that's your thing. It's not mine. Mine tonight, at least, is Traveler Blend 40 with a little bit of Coke in there. Doing a little bit of a mix tonight. I had a glass with a cigar earlier, so I'm allowed to mix now. Let's see here. Next thing up before we start getting into tonight's actual content is seriously the kind of stuff that I don't like talking about, but I kind of have to because it's important in our area. I'm going to address good old Condor DM, and I don't like it. For those who don't know, like, Condor DM rarely pops up on Intelligence as a dump stat, like far more rarely than he could. And the reason is because my general rule of thumb on Intelligence as a dump stat is that it's a satirical take on the overreactions we have to things people say in the gaming space. So, like, when people get out there and talk about how, rules as written is the only right way to play, and they take this almost religious stance on it and jump all over it, it's just such an outsized reaction. So basically, I take the stuff that I see and I overreact to it on purpose. But if I'm doing this to people who can't grasp the concept that that's what it is that it's kind of an open mockery of the overreactions to these takes, it kind of feels like kicking the kid on the short bus. Unless I'm talking to, like, if I'm talking about like a Jenny D or a Professor DM or Pointy Hat, or I mean, hey, even all the way down to like, RPG Elite or like Double D or something, 10,000, 12,000 subscribers. Them, I consider that kind of like a public figure. And it's like, yeah, you get mocked because that's just part goes with the territory. But when you're talking about Condor, who bought 900 subscribers and has like 5 actual subscribers, that's just kind of, or random Joe Schmo on Twitter who just exists there and likes to talk about games. If they don't take it right, I usually try to kind of, push them out of the way. And to be honest, Condor had this situation with Diversity and Dragons. And as always, Diversity and Dragons was extraordinarily gracious on his stream and brought receipts and basically pointed out that guess what Condor did? He bullshitted everybody. He lied through his teeth again. He came out and set the thing up and then self-sabotaged it and tattled on himself because he goes out on a live stream and then tries to say that he recorded the live stream before he had, the live stream trashing Diversity and Dragons. He tries to say that he recorded that live stream before he had these pleasant, these friendly truce interactions to set up this interview. And it's like, dude, it's a live stream. It's not pre-recorded. You couldn't have recorded it beforehand at all. It's not possible. Not to mention, in the rant on the live stream, you mentioned things that happened after that. So even if it were pre-recorded, you still tattled on yourself and lied. And the only reason I really bring it up is because he did the same thing on X with me. Is he gets out there and talks about how he had these talks with me to go on stream with me, and how I did other things behind his back, so it's just all over now. And it's like, dude, I've never spoken to you ever. There's never been a DM. We never even had an exchange in the comments before. Not for several years, but definitely not about being on stream or anything. So it just really irks me that he's going out here, and it's like all the grace that's given him, every time you try to give him a little bit of leeway, he just blows it. He self-sabotages. And it just kind of needed to be addressed, unfortunately. But I just don't know what to say there. I don't know what to think on that. Is that there he is, like, Condor self-inserts. He self-inserts and then he self-sabotages. And I said this on Intelligence is a Dump Stat a while back, and Double D said this on his stream last night. If Condor would stick to talking about gaming and would stick to interviewing people and not making it about himself, he is actually really good about that. The guy has a wealth of knowledge, especially about the second edition era, the 80s and 90s era of gaming. But he can't do that. He just can't help himself. And I've mentioned it 100 times before, but the first video I ever made that had anything to do with Condor way back in the day was, you can agree with Condor 99% of the time, and it's not enough. 1% disagreement with Condor is you're scum, you're trash, you're evil, you're attacking him, your lies, your BS, your attack videos, et cetera, et cetera. And I just don't think that's ever going to change. And honestly, I don't even really think he should be farmed for content. I think Double D should just be like, look, I'm just never going to click on your channel ever again, no matter what you say. But anyway, let's do a couple of chats here, and then I'm going to bring Mr. Spider on, and we're going to get to talking about the subject of the video, or the subject of the stream. We're talking about a project I've been working on for a video/video series based on Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. and it will be 7 habits of highly effective game designers. And the reason I brought this to stream, and of course, Mr. Spider himself is a game designer. He's got one that he's put together. And we've had, of course, OGGM on here, who has put together some stuff for Shadow Dark. I've had plenty of exchanges with Sandy Peterson, with Alexander McCrease, with the RPG Pundit, and I've spoken about these things. And of course, I've done some design work myself. And one of my writers, Aaron Lind, has been working on a game for a considerable amount of time. And we're just trying to look at what I mean when I say the 7 habits of highly effective game designers. I do want to stay away from the generic stuff when I'm kind of putting this together. So, like stuff that would be in the 7 habits of highly effective people, such as sharpen the saw and be proactive and stuff like that. That's just success in general. I'm saying, what are these habits that not just that allow you to bring a game to market that is to at least some degree successful, at least some degree eye-catching, that it is successful in the fact that it actually functions well when you made a system or when you made something or when you made an adaptation, that allows you to make a complete game as opposed to something that's kind of slapped together, something that can generate at least enough sales to pay for itself. Not necessarily to be successful in the financial sense or successful in the big scheme of things, like you're a D&D killer, but successful in the sense that you made a game that is successful at being a game and that other people can pick up and agree are being successful at a game. But first off, narrowing it down to 7 is going to be relatively difficult. And second is there's different degrees in there, and I like to get these different perspectives, especially because it's not like I've published a game that's sold 1 million copies or anything. So getting to pick the brain of the people who have done it successfully, and then to work with the people who buy the games that make the successful games successful, getting that feedback will help make this something that will be better for designers in the future. So let's hit some of these comments real quick, and then I'm going to bring Spider on. Let's see here. Feast of Unleavened Bread coming up. 8 days, no bread. Ugh. I like bread. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. Passover. Meanwhile, I'm making chicken soup. No problem with Passover for sure, but let's see here. Matter of fact, Passover is not a bad habit for anybody to be in. Just some of the, just like Sabbat is not a bad habit, regardless of your religion, to shut everything off and just be away from the world and with your family for 1 day a week. Lord knows that would probably improve, I'd say, pretty much everybody's life. But let's see here. There you go. Watsy can't win me back. Maybe other grognards can be won back. And there is, I would say this, just like I was saying with OGGM here a minute ago, that's not unfair. It is not unfair to say that what you have done until you sell the IP is beyond my ability to give grace to the shareholders of this company. Because you could say that the sins of the company have gone so deep that the shareholders didn't act fast enough to put pressure on them. Let's see here. Did say we punish them when we did badly? We should reward them when they do well, if they do well. And that's kind of my point. I'm not going to sit here and argue on either side there. And then, of course, also, I need a cigar with that. I actually had one. Smoke before I don't smoke in the house at all. And actually, I don't smoke that much, period. And the only thing I do smoke is cigars. So it's not like I'm actually smoking. I don't inhale anything. But before coming in to start up the stream, I had a Deadwood Tobacco Company Big Fat Betty Robusto out on the deck with a glass of the Traveler 40 blend straight, not mixed with anything. Let's let's see here. Speak of the devil, you're just over there. Yeah, I saw you commented on one of his videos, man. I mean, and I'm surprised he actually posted because you weren't kissing his ass. And old school gamer has you blocked again. Must have happened after letting know. You told him that I was on there, and then he made a stream with his AI girlfriend about how terrible I am that nobody could hear the first 50 minutes of, and then he deleted most of it because he got called out for that. Yep, you don't click on Condor and Horgera, but it's like Spider the Spider. Well, I guess you're gonna find out, aren't you? It's got to be a spider. I think it's the spider. I guess that depends. Is he your Huckleberry or not? Yeah, why not? Here you go. Here's your plug. Vigilante's a Shadow Dark for $10. That's right. OGGM had him on 2 weeks ago. It is very much worth buying, even if he can't spell his own book right. I don't know if he just accidentally capitalized the I or if that's the lowercase L in there, but to me, I think you should pay him for that just so that he could get a better spell check. We're gonna get 2 more, and then I'm gonna go ahead and bring Spider on. See, did you happen to catch the last Vicky and Dean? He'll take over. I did see a big chunk of that. I popped in to obviously congratulate them on the birth of their kid. Obviously, neither Jack or Vic Soon was on because they have a brand new baby. But that's Talking in the Library, folks. Definitely worth a look there. They have a pretty good little show over there. And they did have 2 fantastic artists on there talking all about artistic, the artistic side of TTRPGs and whatnot. And yes, I probably do need to go back and catch that part because I missed anything. I probably had to dip before they got to that. There we go. Watsy would have come out with something absolutely amazing to win me back. And even then, it would be probationary. Yes, I 100% agree with it being probationary. All right. And then, of course, obviously, yes, we just actually covered the Condor Diversity and Dragons drama. I guess you might have to go back and catch it on the replay. But I said my piece on that, mainly because Condor was lying about having conversations with me. But let's go ahead and bring Mr. Spider on board. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. You?
I cannot complain, and if I did, it would not work.
That was pretty much every moment of my life up until I came on the stream, actually. It was a long day. It's a long day.
It hasn't worked yet. I've tried. I have tried
right?
many, many times, and I have yet to have it actually function. But I'm going to do it right there. There you go. Shortest intelligence.
Oh my
yeah.
That news. No, thank you. I'm not interested in that at all.
No, I'm not. When you hear what his idea was, it makes you want to vomit.
Oh, I heard his idea. I'm not going to repeat his idea. No, thank you. I'm just not interested. Hopefully I don't fall out of my chair while we're talking.
I've been a massive admirer and huge fan of Tolkien my entire life. And I always used to say, I'm like, man, if we could just find the right adaptation, because Tolkien was always very just militant that the rights should not be sold, that they should not make them. He tried a couple of times. He was like, look, it's not going to work. You cannot do this. It cannot be adapted.
Right.
And once again, he is proven right. Because even though you get the Peter Jackson films, which were fantastic and were kind of like a big thing for me, like they finally came through.
Sure.
And I'm like, I can deal with this adaptation. I can deal with some of these changes. I know that some of them were necessary for the change in the medium. There's some of them that really bother me, but I can deal with them.
Right.
And it's been so far downhill ever since then that the only thing I think the rights to Lord of the Rings should be buried like deep in the mantle of the earth where nobody can get them ever again. They should be shut down. Not a single letter of the Silmarillion should be licensed out to anybody.
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine them trying to do Barrett and Luthien? Just try. Oh.
No way.
It was terrible. It was so awful.
Well, I mean, you got these things where they got Tolkien experts trying to own people, and they can't even. They're mixing up Finarfin and Fëanor, like the two complete polar opposites.
Well, of course.
It's just like, oh.
I mean, Tolkien's a tough nut to crack conceptually. He's not like it's sort of like asking anybody, like, you know, what makes Narnia work or something. Half the time, if somebody says, well, this is what I think made, you know, Tolkien work, they're saying what they feel, what Tolkien made them feel, and those are not the same things.
No.
They're not at all. It's not the same. It's not the same thing what an artist made you feel versus what the artist did that worked. Those are two totally separate things.
Yeah, absolutely. And unique to the Lord of the Rings is the obscene level of world building that's in the Lord of the Rings. And it's not just great. It's not just world building. Everything in Tolkien's Legendarium works. So it's not like one of these things where you can go back and, like, say, change something and fill in a blank and it fits. Or it's like, it's okay because this and this, there's a lot of vagary between these two events. They're so intrinsically locked that when you start changing anything, you are either having to alter what came before or alter what came after. You're unraveling the whole thing. And it was devastating. But no.
Well, it was a spiritual exercise for him.
Yeah, I mean, he never meant it to be. And The Hobbit he published as kind of a children's book, but The Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion, the Silmarillion's actually cobbled together from a bunch of his notes and short stories.
Right.
But the Lord of the Rings, he never wrote that to be commercially successful. He really never planned on publishing it. It was the absolute definition of a labor of love and exercise in the way he thought about things. And it's just the thing I think is hilarious, and OGGM kind of touches on this here. He says LOTR is fine where it is, just go watch the Rankin Bass Hobbit. I think that's kind of funny because of all the Lord of the Rings properties, of the Tolkien properties, the Hobbit is by far the easiest to adapt. It's a basic children's adventure story, and it was written that way before it was adapted to fit into the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And somehow that was the beginning of them making a complete hash out of everything. Because for all the good Peter Jackson did with the Lord of the Rings trilogy, he made a complete mockery of the Hobbit. And then everything after
I'm kind of blown away by that, honestly. I'm still blown away by how bad the third movie is. The third movie particularly. It's boring. The third one to me is boring. And I don't even think I've ever seen it. I just got done with the second one and was so overwhelmingly offended by every single decision they made. I was like, no, not doing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of it comes from this. And I did give Peter Jackson just a tiny little bit of leeway. I gave him a little bit of grace on this. And that is the issue is the Lord of the Rings was made first. And there's two major problems with that. The Lord of the Rings was always a young adult and adult undertaking. It was not written for children. I mean, it's not that children can't read it, but it wasn't written for children. And it has a lot of deep philosophical themes that run through it. The Hobbit was written for children, and it really doesn't. So you come in with a two-headed dragon there. First is Lord of the Rings, the deep philosophical content's already there. Well, even though he, just very famously detested allegory, the allegory is already there in the Lord of the Rings. So they don't have to try and shoehorn their own in to make it feel like it's something important. The Lord of the Rings already has it, so they don't have to ruin it that way. The Hobbit, he has to find some way to make some kind of deep commentary or something, because that's what every movie, you can't just have a popcorn movie anymore. You have to shoehorn some kind of commentary. The Hobbit's not for that, so we're going to shoehorn that in. And then second is he made the Lord of the Rings first, which means the audience it captured were teenagers and young adults when they came out, so they couldn't go back and say make a kids movie for the Hobbit. So they had to adult it up and make it a more adult satisfying movie, or more, a older audience satisfying movie. So they had to add in all this stuff that's not what you would have in like a children's book. And because of the nature that the movies came out later, and he knew his audience had aged into where the simple adventure story might not have worked. And I think that was a massive mistake. I think there may have been some studio pressure that made that happen, though I find that ridiculous that, given the level of success of the Lord of the Rings, that he had any studio that could pressure him. But that was the grace I gave him. But he screwed it up. And there is some, I don't know if there's any fact to it, but there's some rumors out there that basically the estate was like, no, we didn't like what you did with the Lord of the Rings, so we won't give you the Silmarillion. So he's like, well, I've already got the rights to the Hobbit, so I'm just going to do whatever the hell I want to with it, and to hell with you. And basically was like, how can I piss off Christopher Tolkien with this? I don't know if there's any truth to that, but
not true.
I mean, it's bad enough that it could be that.
I mean, I think that they could have done a kind of commentary, but it would have. It's the same problem that I had with the Lord of the Rings movies, which is that I never really felt like Jackson really took. I don't feel like he ever really took the Hobbit seriously. You read Lord of the Rings, and Frodo is a very, very, very distinct character. He has this growth. He has this change. You see him growing under and against the pressure of the ring at the same time. It's not just that Frodo is having to deal with the eye and it's crushing him. It's that it's legitimately making Frodo a better, like the struggle sharpens him, and you get to the Scouring of the Shire where he laughs Saruman down, basically breaking the one magical thing that Saruman had left to him with just a laugh. He literally laughs Saruman in the face and it's gone. There's nothing else like it in the Legendarium, to the best of my knowledge. And I always felt that Jackson didn't take this struggle that sharpened while it crushed very seriously. It never, everyone in the books is like, wow, Frodo's actually really cool. He runs into Faramir, and Faramir's really, really taken aback by how unchildlike Frodo is and how wise he actually is. Like, he's actually really impressed by it. He brings it up. Everybody else that runs into Frodo has some form of, hold up, you're not normal. Like, something's up with you. And of course the answer is he's got this ring on him that he either puts up or he shuts up, and he has no other option. And I really wish that they'd gotten into that more with the movies, but Jackson made a few decisions that I could be here for the rest of the night ranting about.
This could very easily be that, because you said Faramir, and the only character I think was treated worse than Faramir in the movies was Éowyn. I think Éowyn's character was completely destroyed.
Éowyn was trash.
I think her character was undermined so much.
Oh yeah.
And more importantly, the negative part of Éowyn was undermined, because Éowyn was almost a message to little girls that it's like, you don't need to be a man.
Right.
Because Eowyn's whole thing in the book was she was like, no, I'm going to go be a soldier. I need to go be a soldier. She was never satisfied with her role.
Right.
And she just had to push. And like one of the, there's a couple of changes. Everything that happened with the Witch King and Eowyn is a disaster, in my opinion. For one, they moved one line.
Be here the rest of the night
They moved one line and took it from a powerful moment and turned it into a girl boss laugh line with the I am no man, because in the book, she says that before they fight.
Yep.
It basically her whole thing is that she stands up and she says, you're not going to fight him. And she's like, I don't give a shit what you say. I don't care what comes out of your mouth. I'm not going to let you do this. I'm going to fight you. And he's like, well, no man can hinder me. And she says, well, I'm not a man, so screw you. All right. That is her defying somebody when she's in an impossible situation, and it's powerful. But when she says it like right before she kills him, when he's on his knees and there's nothing he can do about it, this is just rah BS. But
Yep.
Theoden dies while she's unconscious in the book.
Yeah.
There is no moment between her and Theoden in the book. And she has to wake up later in the Houses of Healing and understand that she lost that moment, and she lost it. And a lot of it came from her own hubris in trying to not be content with the heroism she had, in constantly trying to prove that she could be something she wasn't. And her first interaction with Faramir is actually a clash. And Faramir is just like, you don't need to fight with me. Like he's like, I don't need to stand up to you here. And you know, that's kind of what makes her character turn a corner. And all of that is gone in the books. And Faramir is turned into a milksop. And Eowyn is.
We will be here the rest of the night. I'm just warning you. I'm warning you. I hate that change. That change. Oh my God, I was 14. Okay, we're moving past that. We're moving past when I first saw that in the theater. Anyway, just realizing at 37, going on 38, that I saw that when I was like 14, and I just.
Hey, congratulations! You may be the first person younger than me on my stream.
Woo! I think. But like, I remember watching that, and like, I almost got up and left. I was like, no, absolutely not. This is nothing about that decision was acceptable. Nothing. Yeah.
But the rest of the trilogy that he did was so well done. And anything that you miss, you can look back and you can say, look, I think it was actually even Tolkien that said it. That it was like, in order to like make the movies properly, they'd be like 10 hours long.
Right.
There's no way you could possibly fit all that in there. So you can at least understand a lot of the cuts. You can't understand the stuff that was done in The Hobbit, padding it out into 3 movies. Control-Alt-Delete did a comic back when The Hobbit was announced to be 3 movies, and I think it's by far the most accurate thing ever said about them. And it was like asking about, Peter Jackson about why he felt that The Hobbit needed to be broken into 3 movies. And even though it's a book that you can read in an afternoon, and he was like, well, you see, there's great complex reasons with studios and distribution you need to understand. And otherwise, I wouldn't be able to build the 4th corner of my money for it. It's like that's the reason. It's the money for it. And then with Amazon, I'm not even getting into Rings of Failure, because that's a disaster. We're here to talk about habits of effective game designers.
Yeah,
and you're about to get me off on the Tolkien tangent. I do need to go ahead and put this right here, right now, because this is important and it is self-plugging. Mr. Michael comes out and says, just had to pay for the 3rd one on Amazon because I never bothered to get it when it came to video, but watched it to finish the first time the other day and could have saved his money for Corvid Codex. Yes, you could have. You certainly could have. Everybody should save their money for Corvid Codex. I 100% endorse this plan. Just so you guys do know, Corvid Codex will be coming in live. I'm going to have to do it through Lulu to start it off, and I am going to start it through Lulu to start rolling it forward. And we're going to start in April. So you're going to have April, May, and June for the first volume. And I'm going to sell it after that, obviously. It's not like it's going to disappear. But April, May, and June will be dedicated to the Volume 1 on Lulu, both PDF and paperback. And then I will we have volume 2 slated for July. So third quarter this year, you'll pick up volume 2. And then as long as everything's going the way it's supposed to, and I don't have any kind of craziness happen that delays me, we should by fourth quarter this year have volume 3. So volume 1 will be available for you guys to purchase, physical copy and PDF versions, in April. So pay attention to that. So let's talk a little bit. So first, tell me a little bit about your game and what you've got going on there and where you're at in your design process. And you've published, haven't you?
Yeah, I've published the Ashcan edition. I'm working on 0E right now. So it's the Crescendo role-playing game. It is a game that seeks to emulate Gene Wolfe of the Solar Cycle fame, if you've ever read Book of the New Sun, Christopher Rocchio's Sun Eater series, which just wrapped up. I'll get into that in a minute. And C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy.
Okay.
So it's a game of mythological, psychological development. The characters start off with beliefs, which they are rewarded for causing chaos and problems with. The GM role is called the Weaver. We can get into why that is in a couple of minutes, but suffice to say, the Weaver isn't so much crafting thing. He isn't crafting an adventure so much as he makes the sandbox, sits back, and says, I made this to piss you all off. And then everybody goes nuts. And then wherever it goes,
is a role-playing game.
It's a very narrative story-based game, but it's very, very, very unexpected. I've actually started recording sessions on my YouTube channel simply so that way when people look at the rule book and they go, how the heck does this work? And when they realize that like a clean third of the sessions are just pure chaos, just total unmitigated, me sitting there going, now what? And the players are like, oh, good, we broke this. Let's go break this other thing. And then they go happily trot over there and, everything else breaks on the way. So it's definitely meant to be a quote unquote, it's meant to be that more serious game. Everybody, at least in my experience, all the D&D groups I've ever run in, there's always one or two people inside of like a 6-person group. So let's just, assuming a 6-person group, right? Yeah. Not quite a 4. We'll get to that. But if you start getting a larger group of D&D, I've always noticed that there's always those 1 or 2 people who want to be a little bit more serious, and they kind of want to have a little bit more of a story, and they want to have a little bit more of this narrative that surprises them. And I have noticed that without fail, that if you do not give them something to sink their teeth into, they will derail the rest of everyone else who is there to drink beer and and eat pretzels. And so that's kind of, it's a very serious but very fun game. It's very, 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 very unexpected.
Okay. So, and did you mechanically, like when you say it's a very unexpected game, it's designed to be chaotic. What did you make like some hard mechanical decisions with the purpose of forcing that chaos into the game? And is that the seed you started with, is how can I make this a chaotic feel? Like what was the beginning of the design process, the seed that was the genesis for those design decisions?
So if you haven't read Gene Wolfe, and most people haven't, so this is not a, about 10% of a Gene Wolfe story is what's on the page. The other 90% is inferred, which means that random things seemingly come up. Stuff happens, and there's no overt explanation for it. Instead, you have to start to infer from the world itself what happened. So, like, a really good example of this in one of Wolfe's stories, you run into a bunch of giant bat people. You're like, you know that there's aliens out there, but these bat people show up, and there is no explanation for it. And it's only until later when you start hearing that people are smuggling aliens onto the planet Earth that if you're paying attention, you go, oh, okay, that's where they come from. Okay, cool. Like, these are refugees or, you know, things that have been kidnapped. But he never tells you. You just run into bat people. So I wanted to create something that had that unexpected feel where, like, you're going and you're laboring greatly in the interest of your deep psychological things, and then a bat person shows up and you go, what are you doing here? And the bat person goes,
how do you simulate that through the mechanics? So what in the mechanics or in the design of the game pushes that chaos?
a little funny little mechanic I designed called hitting the books. Everybody has a journal. Everybody. And they record little short sentences called bullet points into these journals. And so at specific points during the game, the Weaver calls out, it's time to hit the books. Everybody opens up to a random page, closes their eyes, puts their finger down on the, you know, wherever they know there's writing. And they announce out loud what they've landed on. They can say as much or as little of what they've landed on as they like. Whatever strikes their fancy. Doesn't matter. The Weaver then takes all of these things all these people are saying, kind of keeping the setting in the back of his mind, and comes up with a plot twist. It's very
essentially instead of hitting a random table, every single player is a random table and is basically a random piece of a sentence that then the GM then has to turn into which that would indeed be extraordinarily chaotic. And I mean, that is a point on it, because that does play into, like I said, you know, the looking at tonight's stream, we're looking at different things that are habits that you have to have in your design to be effective. And, you know, we got a few of them here, and it's like the second one I have written down here is there's two that I think this actually plays into. Possibly a third, given that you're this is very much based off of specific writings, because I did have be well read as one of them. I think that you do have to be very well read. That actually comes from a piece of advice that Alexander McCrease had pointed out, where he's like,
amazing designer and an awesome person in general.
Yeah, and he said, he's like, it's not enough. He's like, you need to be extraordinarily well read on whatever your subject is. If you're going to do a Napoleonic game, you need to know the Napoleonic era backwards and forwards. But you also need to be well read on the periphery and on the outside, because a lot of times what's going to give you the uniqueness of your world is when you introduce other elements into, you know, other ideas that'll fit into whatever your main theme is. And if you're well read in general, you don't have to go find something. You just already have it floating in your head because you remember it from what you did. But the two this brought me into, I had written down, one is the feel is more important than the real. And define your focus. Define your focus, of course, being more obvious. Like, you have to have a defined focus of your game if you want it to be successful. So if you want it to be something that's not just successful like, hey, money, but successful in terms of people can play this. Yeah, if you, as a successful design, you must define the focus of your game. And it sounds like, you know, the focus of your game is this narrative chaos that brings in all players. You know, you even name your GM the Weaver because he is weaving together the threads of these other players who have brought in this idea. And then when I say the feel is more important than the real, to me, this came back when I was thinking about something I've talked about numerous times when it comes to combat. If you want truly realistic combat, we're going to make about 400 opposed rolls. Because there's a single punch being thrown has innumerable variables in how it works. But you don't want it's not about it being realistic. It's about it feeling realistic. And real combat feels muddy and indistinct and chaotic and abstract. So boiling it all down to one roll makes sense because that feels like combat. It's fast, it's over quick. There's a bunch of stuff that, you know, you're missing a lot of details here and there. There's a lot of what if, and it's like, well, the what if is not there because you don't remember the what if. You know, you don't think about that. You get into a fight and you don't remember all those fine details. All you remember is this hit landed, this hit didn't. Sometimes you don't even remember that. When I look at this, it's like, does this give you the feel of that chaotic rush? Does it give you the feeling that everything is randomized, that everything is beyond, that nobody's in control?
Right.
And by saying we're going to get random, essentially what amounts to random pieces of a sentence from every single player at the table, and then one player is going to take that and turn it into a situation, there's absolutely no way. Not only is each person random, but it's each person. So how can anybody be truly in control, even the one who's in charge of weaving it together?
I actually usually feel the least in control. Like, it's been the last session that we ran, one of the players had brought in a journal that she had started for a campaign we had been running, and it unfortunately ended early. You know, it's just logistics happen. So she brought the other journal in, and she didn't tell me she was going to do this. And the pitch for that game was essentially Godzilla showing up and knocking over a medieval town and then falling asleep in the middle of the town and nobody can move him. Like, that was my campaign pitch. So she brings in this journal and she goes, "Look what I have." I'm like, no, don't you dare. Because, like, I'd been there when she wrote most of the stuff into it. I'm like, I know where this is going. I don't like this. And she goes, "Oh, look, I hit on something with Godzilla in the sentence." I'm like, gee, thanks. Now I get to, thanks so much. So we were on top of basically a bottomless ocean, and she landed on Godzilla. What did you like? Everyone's looking at me, and I'm like, well, we now have Godzilla from this other. Damn it, Tasha! I just cussed her out a few minutes. She goes, "Guess what you have?" I'm like, "Oh,
more Godzilla." Of course, can a game really be bad if there's not more Godzilla in it?
Well, I mean, true. But it was just more of a, like, we had the way that it works is that the game is very narration based. So it's actually a very smooth feeling game for the most part. So people have to verbally go back and forth. There's a lot of very, very heavy narration that's expected of everybody. Until people start to roll dice. Once people start rolling dice, you always hit the books afterwards. And so one person had rolled dice and someone else is like, "My turn." I'm like, "No, don't you dare." And they're like, "No, I'm rolling." So, like, there's this whole, like, because of the way that the mechanic works, the players, if they want an absolutely apeshit crazy session, can just go. They can all make a handshake agreement and go, "Well, I'll roll after you." And the Weaver's sitting there like, well, this was going to be a relatively low-key session, I thought, and apparently not. So if anything, like, but that's also a lot of fun because that's also not what happens like 95% of the time. 95% of the time, everyone's, you know, trying to outsmart each other. They're trying to outwit the Weaver. They're trying to figure out how they can get what they want without rolling. But sometimes everybody chooses violence, and then violence ensues.
So basically, it's anytime somebody is forced into a role, they're forced into completely changing the entire game.
Yes. And then, unlike in most games, in Crescendo, it's player initiated. The Weaver doesn't call for the roll. The player decides to roll. Because the Weaver might back them into a corner. Because it's like, "Oh, look, I'm going to go climb this thing, and I'm going to go climb this cliff in the middle of a rainstorm." And you go, "No, you don't. You're not climbing a cliff in the middle of a rainstorm. You don't have the equipment. No. You fall and crack your head open." And they go, "No, I'm rolling dice. I'm getting up the cliff." And you're like, "Fine, roll." And if they get it, they get it. And if they don't, they don't.
But if they get it, they also get, well, as I assume, whether they get it or not, they get to have everybody hit the books.
Right. Regardless.
So basically, if they decide they want to push the issue, they result in shuffling the board.
Yep. And it's interesting because it's a totally social thing. So sometimes people will show up and they don't want that. And
so
everyone will pick up
this game specifically to market to the Bro SR.
I didn't even know the Bro SR existed at the time. I had no idea. But I mean, I have run the game for Dunder Moose.
Hey, there you go.
He is fantastic.
You know what? Ironically, as much as they are militant, rule is written, D&D, AD&D, you know, depending on what day of the week you talk to them, they're always militant, rule is written. But you know, the whole it has to be AD&D thing just depends on what day of the week it is. But
agreed.
As much as they are like that, you know, rules, domain play, all that stuff. It's like then they like Bronstein, and it's like Bronstein is basically a LARP.
Right.
This is basically a ruleless game where everybody stands in different rooms and talks to each other. So it's like, ironically, this sounds like the kind of game that they would trash all up and down X, but then absolutely love playing. And 5 years from now, it would be the new greatest game ever for them.
I mean, I wouldn't. I think it's funny that the first time that Crescendo ever aired was on Dunder Moose's channel.
That is kind of funny.
He took me cold. He was like, "Yeah, sure, let's go." I'm like, "Really? I've got like, I don't even have $5 to my game." He goes, "Okay, let's go."
No, think about it, Dunder Moose will play just about anything. He's by far, I think he's more. This is actually kind of ironic given my last public interaction with Dunder Moose. He's probably the most honest out of the entire Bro SR. Like the most.
I'm not sure. It's so hard to tell because, like, I either get along with you and you know it, or I don't get along with you and you know it. I don't play games in that sense. I don't like, I was that kid in high school where the guys would be like, "Hey, let's arm wrestle." And I just look at them and go, "No." Like, why not? I said, because if I'm going to touch you, I'm going to put you in the ground. And they laugh until they realize I mean it. I just do. Like, I don't have that, like, there's some like thing where they like beating their chests, and I don't have it in me at all. Like, at all. Like, there's been a few times they're like, "Oh, come on, play along." I'm like, no. I just don't feel like
it's not a game I'm interested in.
Right. Sorry, don't want to do it. So yeah, like it's been funny to like, and I do like a lot of their ideas. I found that when I put some of their ideas into Crescendo, it goes really, really, really well. It just does. And I go where ideas work. And those ideas have worked for my game. So I use them. But like, I really enjoy, I do not like having to pre-plan a lot of stuff in my sessions. And Crescendo is perfect for that. No.
There you go. Grognard's Gate. Always in here to slide out the words of wisdom.
Oh yeah. Oh, but like, I don't know.
High school for I want to hold your hand and not be gay.
No, thank you. But like, so yeah, so like, I think that people need to be much more, when you're designing stuff, you do need to be a lot more focused on what it is because like Crescendo has all of this craziness going on, but it's also a very, 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 very deeply psychological game because people are putting out their characters' beliefs and they are rewarded for acting in accordance with those things. And so like, it sounds like it would go completely off the rails, but because it's all grounded so heavily in human misery, instead it's this odd, like, it's grave up until it's not. And when it isn't, and that's great. But then you go back to everybody being kind of serious with each other because that's Gene Wolfe. I mean, you know.
So let's see here. We're right at halfway through. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end this poll, and we're going to talk about it for 1 second.
What poll we got here?
Of course, it doesn't populate over here, so I'm going to have to click over to YouTube to look at it.
Sure.
So I ran a poll for the starting at the beginning of our stream here, and I just said, is luck the determining factor in initial TTRPG design success, or is it more about intentionality? And luck and timing was 11%, intentionality and focus was 89%. So overwhelmingly, the chat views intentionality and focus as the determining factor in initial TTRPG success, as opposed to luck and timing.
I mean, that's kind of checked out. I mean, I barely have $20 to my name from this game, so let's just be clear here. Be very clear. I don't even have enough money to pay for an artist, and I'm just going through open source art for 0E as we're talking. But I do find that the more I go on and talk to people and just put up, I produce receipts. That's what my YouTube channel is. If you want to know how my game plays, you can go over to my YouTube channel and you can watch quite a number of, actually, I mean, the production quality's crap, but you can certainly go and look and kind of get a feel for how it works. I do think that, I think at some point Crescendo might take off. And if it does, it's because I just keep plugging away at it until somebody goes, oh, actually, this is pretty cool. That's how I see it anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I look at Shadow Dark as a good example of that question, because you look at it and some people will sit there and tell you that Shadow Dark is all timing. Shadow Dark it's luck. The big reason that Shadow Dark blew up is because she just so happened to be dropping her Kickstarter right when the OGL scandal hit.
Right.
And
I mean,
there's some truth to that, but how many people rushed to drop a game immediately with the OGL scandal trying to catch that wave and didn't, but her game did?
Right, exactly. Because she'd been working she'd been working really hard on that, from what I understand,
for several years. And my dad always told me, it's kind of a trick question. Is it luck and timing versus intentionality and focus? Well, I was always raised to believe that luck is preparation meets opportunity. And if the opportunity comes along, if you're not prepared, you can't have the luck in the first place. But that's really what it was with Shadow Dark, is she had the right product in the right time. It just so happened to be the right time.
But she had spent all of that time, there's so many things inside of that game. At least when I play it, right? I've only run one session of it myself, so the salt, massive amounts of it. But I found that every single rules change she did to the classic D&D formula, I have found so far to be utterly genius.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get into that here in a second, because it is going to be time to talk about some of these 7 habits here. Well, actually, I've got more than 7 because I got to figure out what they are. But first, we got to say hi to Mercurius. My ear trumpet has been struck by lightning. Always coming in to drop the super chats and to say hi, because he's just an awesome guy like that. Doesn't even have a comment. Just, hey, here's a couple bucks Australian. I may unfortunately have to do the unprofessional thing and run and grab a drink here in a second because I keep coughing. But
you're good.
I want to leave you alone on my stream to keep people entertained. But let's run down these real quick. I'm going to run down some of the ones I have, because I'm sure there's some that I'm missing. That's part of the reason why I was like, hey, I need this. And this is chat too, guys. I need to hear from you guys on your thoughts coming into some of these things that I'm talking about. once again, I want to reiterate, this is about making a successful design. It doesn't necessarily, just like, a really effective design does not necessarily guarantee success in, well, let's stay on brand here for a minute. There are some fantastic cars that were absolute failures, and then there was absolute garbage that sold like hotcakes. Okay, there are plenty of really bad car designs. I mean, I'm going to put it to you like this. There's this vehicle called the Porsche Cayenne that was so successful that it got every luxury automobile manufacturer on the planet, or every supercar manufacturer on the planet, to start making SUVs. Lamborghini and, for Christ's sake, Ferrari has an SUV now. And it all goes back to the Porsche Cayenne, which is one of the single ugliest cars that was ever made. And it was, at best, mediocre at everything it was supposed to be good at. But it doesn't matter. It was a Porsche SUV, and it was super successful. I don't think it was the most successful design as a car, but it was very successful financially. And then we got all kinds of cars where it's like, I mean, to be honest, the Pantera Magusta was pretty fantastic, and most people don't even know it exists. So
I have a hard time remembering that my Honda is a Honda, so you're talking to the wrong guy on that one.
There you go. But so like I said, in a lot of terms, this is success when it comes to design. And maybe you could also think of it as, are you successfully going to be able to finish a game that people can actually play and understand without you holding their hand through it?
Right.
I started off, and like I said, I've got 8 written down here, and I've had several more float through my head. And I tried to stylize these. Anybody who's read Stephen Covey knows that the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People are largely written down into, I mean, to say metaphors is wrong, but like, for instance, the last one is sharpen the saw. That's the last effective of highly effective people. Sharpen the saw. And basically he prefaces it by saying, hey, you got a guy who's trying to cut down a tree. He's struggling to get it cut down. The dude comes up and says, well, man, your saw is really dull. Maybe you should stop sawing and sharpen it. And the guy says, well, no, I can't, because I have to get this tree sawed down. I can't stop sawing right now. And it's the habit of being able to stop what you're doing, take time to get everything lined up, because the extra preparation time to go back and do it effectively is going to ultimately be faster. You're going to be faster stopping sawing now, sharpening your saw, and coming back to the tree than you are just hacking at it with the dull saw. Right. So I tried to kind of structure them like that, just to kind of stay on brand. But I started with number 1 was think in settings, not in systems. So, and we'll get it. I'll read through them, and then I'll get into what each one of these things means. So think in settings, not in systems. Okay. We already spoke about feel is more important than real.
Right. Yep.
Okay. Design, then refine. Okay. Think abductively, which that's straight from Alexander McCrease. Define your focus. Know your niche. Be well read. And then, of course, the one that I've got floating down here is quality matters most when it's free. So going down them, other than think abductively, which is pretty obvious, that's using abductive reasoning. In other words, not necessarily the logical following.
Right.
But think in settings, not in systems, basically saying that the first thing you should think about when you're designing your game is always, not in setting doesn't necessarily mean like Forgotten Realms or Greyhawk or even
fantasy. I was wondering about that. Yeah.
But you should first think about the settings your game is designed for. If you are specifically going out to, say, design a medieval fantasy game, you may need a lot of weapons type skills, because that makes sense, because there's a lot of different weapons and a lot of different skills that are required for them in a medieval style fantasy game.
Right.
But if you're in a more modern game, that can be more heavily reduced, because at the end of the day, a rifle is a rifle, a handgun is a handgun.
Sure.
There's going to be some minor differences between, like your manual of arms and whatnot. But at the end of the day, Shooting a rifle is couch the shoulder properly, keep both eyes open, squeeze the trigger, don't pull it. It's
Sure.
Stabilize. And it is what it is, right? I mean, it doesn't matter what rifle you're shooting; those fundamentals are basically the same across the board. But think in settings, not in systems, means that don't get so hung up on some great, cool mechanical idea, some cool rule you've come up with.
Mm-hmm.
If you have some cool idea you've come up with, like say yours, where you're like, hey, I've got this, let's hit the books. If hit the books does not work in the setting that you're trying, you're making a super chaotic setting, so that works.
Sure.
If I'm trying to do something that's far more streamlined and predictable, it doesn't matter how cool this hit the books system is, it doesn't fit this setting.
There's also some practical limitations that if you think from mechanics first, I've usually found that you start running into practical considerations that you just shouldn't have when you're first thinking of a game. So, like for instance, hitting the books. If I thought of hitting the books first, which I didn't, I started with the idea of the setting, like you were talking about actually. And what I found was that every time I went to mechanics first, it produced a series of knock-on effects inside of my game that I didn't like. So by way of example, at one point I had 3 different types of rolls, which if you play D&D, that's not actually a lot. You've got your check, your attack roll, your save. Yeah, they all kind of use the same, but like saves are different and they feel different than a check. They just do. They're used for different things. Attack rolls are, again, they use the same basic system, but they're used for something different. And what I found was that as I was designing, it wasn't producing the world, the setting that I wanted. Because Gene Wolfe stories and Rocchio stories and Paralandra stories they have a feel, like settings are about, at least to me, settings are about your gut feeling. It's about what you feel when you interact with this world. And it wasn't doing it. It just wasn't. And so a lot of my design process was cutting mechanics out, not because I wanted to make a rules-light game. I don't, and I didn't. But because it just didn't fit. It didn't work. And if I kept thinking in mechanics, it actually hurt the design a lot. So I agree with that one totally.
Yeah, and I actually kind of think about it like this. So I think one of the dumbest pieces of, I guess you could say, game master advice that floats around the internet is like, oh, players love to roll dice. Players love to roll dice. Give them the rolls. I'm like, no, they don't. No, they don't. If you can get away without rolling the dice, every time you have to roll the dice,
breaks flow.
There's a reason. Well, there is some truth to that. Just like all the most insidious lies on the planet, there is a bit of truth. There's a seed of truth at the bottom. The reason why, like, say you're playing AD&D, okay, you're playing AD&D, or even playing like 3rd edition or something. You're really excited, or you're playing Call of Cthulhu, and you're really excited when you roll the dice. Man, I get to roll for this. The reason you are is because you have finally gotten to a place where that level of, just the word is escaping me, but that level of uncertainty is there, and it's exciting. It's not rolling the dice that's exciting. What's exciting is the fact that there is a situation that demands it, and we don't know what's going to happen.
Right. Exactly.
If we're rolling for everything, it's just stupid. And it breaks your immersion in the world because you're constantly going back to roll, look at my character sheet, figure out what it is, rather than just continuing to move through what your character's doing and what's happening to them. So I do think that if you found a way to where the only time you ever made a roll was when the stakes were super high, I think that might be like the perfection of game design for tabletop.
I agree.
Games. I only roll dice when the stakes really matter.
Right. And it's when the player wants it to be.
Yeah.
Like it specifically needs to be like there needs to be some level of buy-in on that. I would push back on rolling all the time is boring because I've played Axe and those were not boring sessions. We were rolling all the time, but each roll did something. So it was like, yeah, it's part of your procedure, but like, oh dear God, what did we just make? Like, like, wait a minute. Like, this guy, he failed the check here, which means he burns another turn, which, crap, random monster roll. And now you've got, everything shifts. So like, it's either the roles need to have that narrative punch, or they create a narrative punch so reliably that people are happy to roll. However, there's only one axe.
It's true. There is only one axe.
There's only one. Well, okay, yeah, but you get my point. Like McCree sat down and he figured out how to make it to where everything mattered. That's part of what makes the game so cool.
And, one thing to think about Macrease is, and this is not to put anybody down, but Macrease is a different level of game designer. It's kind of like when you're talking about some of the stuff with, it was kind of like when you're talking about some of the stuff with Max Liao. Max Liao works in the public defense sector, and the games that he works on and works with in that sector are like war games that have to simulate everything. Macrease used to work with West Point, making the same kind of games that are designed to train officers. And
I didn't know that. That's cool.
In games like that, you're not talking about just, I want to have a fun session and I want to simulate this kind of combat. It's like, no, we need to simulate this because people are being taught how to do it when real lives, resources are at stake. And
right.
His design he's got way more experience designing on that level of minutia to where he can refine it the way it kind of needs to be, which we'll get to that one here in just a second. Because we talked about the second one, which was the feel is more important than the real. And to me, what that means is that it's more important that it feels like what it's supposed to than it actually simulates what it's supposed to. So if I'm doing a high-speed chase, I want to feel the adrenaline. I want to feel the snap decisions. I want to feel where the screw-ups have major consequences, but there is a chance to recover. I want to feel that, I want to feel that adrenaline. What I don't want to do is have to develop a degree in mechanical engineering or automotive engineering to be able to, understand the minutia of how many degrees I'm going to turn my steering wheel and the percentage of acceleration and whatnot that is necessary for me to effectively take this corner and not spin out and smash into the light pole.
If Macrease's next game is exactly about this, I'm going to laugh at you, and then I'm going to, he better credit you at that point. Like I decided to make a racing role-playing game.
I'll take it, the racing game. But yeah, so but how do you feel about that? Where it's like, one way that I've said it before in the past, and that I kind of thought about this was if I have a part of the game that's supposed to be slow, all right, like investigation, it is perfectly okay for me to have more rolls, more refined skills, more detailed outcomes. If I'm dealing with something that is, like I said, like an investigation where it's supposed to feel slow and methodical. Whereas, like, say, in combat where it's supposed to feel fast and hectic, I shouldn't have super refined results because it needs to feel ugly and brutish and rough.
I think the principal thing to keep in mind, and it's sort of on your list. This is my critique of the list. I have found that the single principle that has helped me the most is to identify what the core loop of the game is and then to not leave it. at all. You don't leave the loop. You find ways to take advantage of the loop, but you don't leave the loop. So, like, for instance, if let's go back to Axe. Axe has this thing about, when you do a thing, you roll, you check, like there's a procedure that creates a loop of gameplay that everybody can identify and sort of feel out. And once you know what that loop is, you're good. A lot of games, this is me looking at 5e and being very, 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 very critical of it. A lot of games don't seem to understand that there's a loop that people want to get into this flow state, and they don't want to leave it. And if you jar them out of the flow state, they really hate it. It shuts everything off. They have to start all over, and you don't get that many restarts of that kind of thing with a game. It's one thing if you're living in real life and, the flow state of getting onto a train is different than the flow state of navigating, like going and talking to your boss. Those are two completely different loops. But in a game, you want people to never leave the loop. And you can slow the loop down, like what you're talking about. You can be like, right here, I want you to pay more attention. So yeah, you throw a few extra things in there, and but they still feel like they're in the loop. They still feel that there's still that push forward. They feel like they're being carried, and they don't mind it. But if you go from, I don't know, again, picking on 5e because I have a hatred of that system that's hard to understate. If you go from, I don't know, open role play to structured combat, it hurts. People don't like that. It doesn't feel right. It's part of the reason why people
that would be like the verisimilitude, which, the word of the day there. The verisimilitude, people think verisimilitude means realistic, and it does, but it doesn't. Verisimilitude means it's predictably repetitive. It means that you can understand where it's going and how it works. And underneath the hood of your game is the same, we'll go, like I said, I'm going to stay on brand here. Underneath the hood is suck, push, blow, bang. Underneath the hood is a intake stroke, a compression stroke, a power stroke, and an exhaust stroke. And it goes over and over and over and over again, and your car moves down the road. And the second one of those strokes gets screwed up, you have a major problem, and your car goes to the shop. And it doesn't matter if you're driving 500 miles an hour or if you're driving 20 miles an hour. It's still the same 4 strokes in that engine every single time. And it's the same thing with your game. Your player comes to understand this is the cycle, and I can see the cycle. Now, it may be accomplishing something different. It may be a faster cycle. It may be a slower cycle, but it's the same cycle. I need to do this, 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 and this. And this is what I think is probably more important in a way to kind of sum that up and why it's important is you use the term flow state, which fits with me because I used to fight professionally. Grew up in martial arts.
Hold up. What? I was an amateur Muay Thai guy for a while. So
kickboxed and I fought mixed martial arts.
Nice.
Went from point karate to kickboxing, from kickboxing to MMA. And
nice.
So I grew up in the martial arts. And flow state is when everything just starts to move and you're not even thinking about it anymore. It flows. It's a natural state of you're reacting before you're consciously aware of what you're reacting to.
Yep.
And we will talk about immersion in our games. The number one thing that breaks immersion in your game is the mechanics. By getting into that loop, by getting into that same repetitive motion mechanically, as you said, the game loop, it disappears because it becomes a subconscious reaction. And that's how you get to where your game's rules and mechanics no longer affect your immersion anymore, because the movement of the game is now a subconscious part of your reality.
Yep. That's what
which I think the D20 system actually does really well on its core for its core mechanic. The core mechanic of everything is roll D20, add modifier, go high. Becomes second nature. It's some of the other stuff I think that kind of...
Well, it's how it's used. It's how it works. It's how you put it together. And that's why I'm dunking on 5e specifically so hard, because there isn't until you hit combat. And at that point, like, you almost have to be willing to not... dupe's the wrong words. You have to be willing to get the players of the game into this flow unconsciously. They can't, like, a lot of the time, if they're looking at it, they don't enter it. So you kind of have to sneak it in with the repetition of stuff.
Yeah.
Not that it's bad to break flow, but if breaking flow is predictable, then like, for instance, like, tooting my own horn, hitting the books is a huge break. It flips everything. But the players asked for it. The player went, I don't like where this is going. I want a reset. Everybody at that point knows what's going on. It is its own flow.
And the breaking that flow serves a very distinct narrative purpose, or not necessarily narrative purpose, but a very distinct mechanical purpose within the game, because the idea is this game is supposed to be crazy and chaotic. Having the flow undisrupted is not chaotic. It's predictable. Here is a way for us. We're breaking everything down to the very core of how the game works, and then we'll put it back into the system.
Right. And once you do that, it's interesting. So, like, this is I'm in the middle of trashing 5e, and I'm about to bring up one of its more controversial adaptations. Here we go. I actually really like the Dark Souls RPG. I really, really, really enjoy it, which is funny because a lot of people really hate that game. And part of the reason why I like it is because the position mechanic that they came up with is one of the most flow-inducing things I've ever seen in a game. You give people a pool of hit points, and you tell them, if you spend these, you can improve your D20 rolls. And everybody knows what to do with it immediately. I've seen it 100% every time. Everybody gets it immediately. They go, my health can affect my rolls. Oh, I know it. Like, there's something clicks, and all of a sudden you're 3 hours in, and they have failed a saving throw by like 15, and you just smile at them.
Failed a saving throw by 15. That sounds like playing high level 3.5.
Or just rolling a really, really, really bad roll on your D20, and they look at you and they go, I only have 9 position. And you go, oh, that's just so bad. That's just too bad. You can't buy off this particular failure, can you? And they go, no, what happens?
You know, luck works that way in both Cyberpunk and in Call of Cthulhu, because you can spend luck. You can spend luck to increase your rolls and to get better results and stuff, but then you eventually run out of luck. Or you've spent your luck to improve rolls, and then you need to make a luck roll on something, and your luck is 9, and you need to roll under 9 on a D100. And it's like, so maybe you shouldn't have been just willy-nilly dumping your luck into picking locks and talking to people. Here, we're going to go ahead and take this off-topic question real quick before we move on to that third habit, just for fun. Got an answer for that one? What's your favorite D&D campaign?
Define, you mean setting or adventure, or I'm making, because it could be either one of those, and
it's kind of a hard way to say it because if you think about it in the 5e context, nowadays they don't actually do like single adventure modules anymore. They do like, we're going to do Tales from the Yawning Portal or whatever, and it's going to, or we're going to do it's not Ravenloft anymore. It's whatever the whatever the Ravenloft is for Curse of Strahd. It's like a multi-session. It's a campaign. It's not even just a single adventure anymore. And my favorite campaign, actually, our buddy Grognard's Gate just answered it for me. My favorite campaign is mine, obviously.
I
don't do pre-published campaigns, folks. The only reason I buy modules, I will run the occasional module for a party or something, but the only reason I buy modules or published campaigns or anything is for me to wholesale rip off ideas out of them to put into my own stuff. I want that cool trap. I want that nifty way of using a monster. I will say this, and I think this is good for designers too. It will actually factor into one of the later habits. But I have always said that one of the biggest reasons that you as a game master need to buy and or read modules is because your players, as they play in your game over time, will learn how you think. They will begin to understand the patterns and how your brain works. Our brains are pattern forming and pattern recognition machines, and they will eventually subconsciously understand how your brain works, and they'll figure out everything you're doing. But who they're not playing with is the guy who wrote that module. So when you read that, it will give you something you didn't think of. You slide it in, and your players are completely bamboozled by this great DMing you've done and how crazy creative you are because you put somebody else's idea in there because they think differently than you. But you look at that. Besides,
wow, that is one heck of a pitch. Make that and let me know because I might. Yeah, no, I don't.
I'll do it.
I haven't. Right. Please, I'll
pencil. Let's do that. Pencil that in for. I need to make sure I screenshot that or write it down or something. Pencil that in for 2 weeks from now. I'm going to give you the that is my promise to you, buddy. I'm going to put that together and come up with the idea. And since you're already running it, apparently, I am going to try and figure out. I'm going to try and figure out how I would run that, and we'll see how it's different. I do like that. A Yonte campaign based on Casino.
That would be amazing.
Which is based on a true story. So let's go to design, then refine, which is the next one up. I'm trying to move through quickly here since we're kind of coming into the back 30 minutes. But design, then refine. The way I gotta comment on this real quick. My Snake Men or Mafia stereotypes, forget about it. I have a bad problem in Cyberpunk Red. I'm running a Cyberpunk Red game right now for my main group, and for whatever reason, it's gotten into my head that every single ganger, doesn't matter what they are, they all have like New York Mafia accents. And it's like they could be like from like the La Raza, the La Raza de los Mortos gang from South Coronado or something, and they come out sounding like Phil from the Bronx. It's like every last one is like, I don't know what it is. It's like, yeah, SA. I don't know what you're talking about there.
That's
all right. So, design then refine. Oh my God!
Right. Design.
All right, that's enough of that. That's funnier than it should be. So design then refine. This one I'm struggling with a little bit. It may not actually end up on the final list when I get around to making the videos. Talking about design then refine is kind of like the writing advice of write the damn book. It's like quit worrying about making it perfect right now and design it, make your game, make your core mechanic, and then refine it later as you move through adding to it. Don't worry so much about all the different scenarios that whatever mechanic you're trying, whatever your core thing is, whatever your core, like you said, you always go back to the loop, establish the loop and then refine it later, but establish it first. Right.
But playtest, like honestly, that would be my recommendation. Just 3 words, playtest, because you will learn everything.
I gotta look up exactly how he said this. Let's see here. DMs, Alexander McCrease. I sent him a message that said, "Hey man, I'm working on a 7 habits of highly effective game designers video. Would you be willing to share a few things that you find incredibly important?" He had developed a skill at abductive reasoning, which I have as one that I just straight lifted. Learn to think in systems. Read broadly and be polymathic, but read deeply into the subject matter of your game. Talk to your players every day and listen to their feedback. And here is number 5: play test early and play test often.
Never stop. I one of the things that I found, because like I come from like a Burning Wheel 4th edition background, so I come from a very high crunch like. And the thing that I found, and I'll fall off my wobbly chair if I keep doing that. I'm on like one of those chair stools, and every once in a while I lean back just a little too far. Anyway, but the thing that I kept finding when I was designing Crescendo was that the more I played of it, the more I ran it, and the more I talked to people while I was running it, the more I realized that what was coming out of actual play was fundamentally different than what I was designing. So I just started axing. Like I axed like 60 or 70% of the book at one point. It was gone. It wasn't being used. I mean, it wasn't being used. When it was being used, it didn't really add much. And if it was fun, it wasn't fun often enough. And it's like, so you just, but then you start seeing how people react, and you figure out the things inside the loop that people actually enjoy, and you just codify that. You don't need a big grand idea. You just have to see if people like picking up dice, and then as soon as they're done chucking them, they're like, okay, let's flip the table.
It's time to piss off grognards again here real quick. It's kind of the way I think about Thaco. I mean, Thaco is not difficult. It's just subtraction, but it has no business being in the game. There's no reason to use Thaco instead of just D20 roll high. There's no reason to use ascending armor or descending armor class. Descending armor class exists because it was part of wargaming and they lifted it. But let's remember that Thaco was them refining the to hit tables.
Right.
That's all it was. They refined the to hit tables. So we refined it further, and now they're mad.
I like the idea of Thaco, and I like what, again, we're going to go back to our good friend Macrease, who we've been talking about this whole time. I like how he adapted it. I like that on Acts 2, there's this ribbon right on the front of the frickin' sheet that it's like, hey, AC 10, this is what you have to roll to be able to hit it. And all you have to do at that point is just tell the person, I need you to hit AC 10. And you don't even have to ask how, because that's actually that system works really nicely.
Yeah.
But that's not Thaco. And Thaco is a series of tables that I don't like looking at. But I like how Macrease evolved it, because again, he play tests his stuff. Not all of us can.
He also followed habit number 6, which is know your niche.
Right.
And he managed to leave in Thaco without leaving in Thaco.
Right. I mean, I don't. Yeah, exactly. I think that if you play test something enough, and if you get a good enough feel for, again, knowing the niche that you're going for, you can then start using people's feedback as design notes for when you're designing. And once you've got that in place, man, it's going to be hard to, it would be hard to make it would be hard to make a bad product. It would be really difficult at that point.
I'm going to go ahead and skip over for think abductively, because it's pretty cut and dry. You need to you need to understand that you need to be able to understand why things happen without being able to go point A to point B to point C. You just have to be able to recognize those things. That's just a skill you need. But define your focus. Define your focus. I think this is one of those big ones, because you need to know what your focus is on these games. When they make Call of Cthulhu, the focus of the game is the investigation against something that is well beyond your understanding and ability. And everything that they do is built and focused on that part of the game.
Which I think goes into Grognard's question. I have an opinion on this. It depends upon your focus.
Yes, it does. It does actually. It does depend entirely on the focus of the game. Just like armor class as a 2-hit mechanic versus armor class as a damage reduction mechanic depends on your focus. So let's take Cyberpunk, for example. It doesn't make sense for you to be dodging bullets.
No.
It does once you have a tremendous amount of cyberware and you're basically a robot, but that's why you have to have an insanely, almost impossible high level of reflexes to dodge bullets.
Right.
So the entire combat system of Cyberpunk 2020 is built around taking minuses, doing things that make it harder for you to hit the other guy, but also make it harder for him to hit you. And armor is based on reducing damage, not on how hard you are to hit. And that armor wears down because one hit that actually penetrates is going to probably kill you. Almost certainly. You're not going to get shot 2 or 3 times and still be alive unless you're just incredibly lucky. But that's them understanding their focus. The focus in Cyberpunk 2020 was John Woo action movie, gun fu Matrix movie style stuff. You want to see John Wick. You want to see action jumping over stuff. Yeah. So what do you do when you're playing Cyberpunk 2020? You say, well, okay, I'm guaranteed to hit if I just stand here and shoot, but I'm also going to get my head blown off. But if I'm moving, it's going to be harder for me to hit, but I'm also going to be harder to hit. So I'm going to run across the room. But if I dive over this thing, it's going to be even harder for me to be hit. And if I shoot a gun in both hands, I'm going to lower my chance to hit, but I get 2 shots. So the next thing you know is I'm taking my plus 15 and taking it down to a plus 5. But instead of shooting once, I'm shooting twice. I'm running across the room. I'm diving across the table. I'm sliding underneath the chair, and I'm shooting on my way over like I'm in an action movie. Like I'm doing something really crazy, and I'm creating these scenes. And the focus of the system is to give you enough bonuses to make you trade those bonuses away to do more cool stuff and incentivize you to think in terms of what can I sell my bonuses to do?
Yep.
What benefits can I get by doing these things? Whereas D&D, very much more a wargaming thing, though, it's far more abstracted, but it's more based on the powers and stuff your character does. So it's about building your pluses, not trading them.
Right.
Though I think D&D is nowhere near as efficient as Interlock in that case. And I think it's because the focus is a little blurred at this point when it comes to D&D being such a generic system.
Sure. That's part of the...
Yeah. And the same thing with Call of Cthulhu. The combat in Call of Cthulhu is essentially just the skill system. Because combat is an afterthought. If you're in combat in Call of Cthulhu 9 times out of 10, you've already lost.
Yep.
This is a problem.
I will never forget my dentist who died with a shotgun in hand, screaming that he was a real doctor as the boat was swallowed, firing down with a shotgun.
I'm a real doctor. There's all the skill rolls and all the other stuff you did to set that up. And even the advancement system in Call of Cthulhu is kind of based around the same idea where it's you advance by failing.
Yep.
I failed to do this. So, I use this skill in the adventure. So I get to roll and see if I advance, but I only advance if I fail because the idea is the better I am at it, the harder it is for me to improve.
Yep.
So each time I advance, it gets harder to advance again.
Crescendo's advancement system for 0E is literally tied to how much damage you take. So it has like a condition system. So, like you can be angry level 3 or, shattered ribs level 4 or whatever. And the severity of the condition directly contributes to how fast you can advance your character. So like yeah, it's this crazy game, or it can be this crazy game, but if it gets out of the Looney Tunes problem by saying, well, if you don't want better stuff, okay, cool, but everyone else is going to be rolling better than you at some point, and they're taking hits. You know, because a lot of the reason why people sometimes will roll in crescendo is to avoid taking conditions. So they're like, I don't want that. And it's like, nah, yeah, but if you want your better stuff, you kind of have to take the hits. So there's this balancing effect of like, well, I could actually use getting hit this time. I could actually use it. That would actually be useful, as opposed to, no, I can't do it right now. The hit is too bad, because there's like HP to kind of balance that out. So it's like, no, that's too much. I can't do that. I don't care if the advancement is great. My character won't make it out. So let's try and lower this down enough to where I can still get something out of it.
And once again, we're focused on where your focus is that chaos, and is that, you know, making those kind of decisions that are counterproductive in some ways.
Right. And
trade-offs.
It's a really tricky thing to figure out, though.
So let's talk about know your niche.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, know your niche has a couple of different ways you can think about it. It's not just about saying, oh, well, I'm cyberpunk, or I'm sci-fi, or I'm fantasy, or I'm trying to be a generic role-playing system like, say, GURPS. Knowing your niche is also about like knowing, in a lot of ways, like knowing your market, knowing the kind of players that you're targeting with your game. Not just in the sense of, well, I'm making Call of Cthulhu, so I need to target people who like investigative games. But because I'm targeting them, I need to understand the things that are most important to the players in those niches. I think this is part of where the Bro SR blows up on a regular basis, is that they are obstinately blind to the idea that there are other niches in the gaming sphere that do not care about the things that they love. And if I'm going to make a game for the Bro SR, if I'm going to make a game for the Bro SR, I can't fill it with a bunch of narrative mechanics.
Right.
So I think that's part of knowing your niche, knowing what they buy, knowing what's going to piss them off. I guess you could also say this is a part where Wizards of the Coast completely shit the bed, because they didn't understand that their niche was guys who weren't here to hear about their rainbow politics, and didn't want pastel colors, and wanted a hard fantasy game, not a barista coffee shop simulator.
Right. Yeah, no, it's weird. Like, when it comes to that, I remember picking up the Radiant Citadel. I didn't buy it because I didn't have the cash for it. 2, I took 5 minutes to read through the book. And it was really, really, really weird, because like, I did not recognize the game. I just did not recognize what it was. If that makes any sense? Like, I had no idea what to do with what I was looking at, you know, and because it had that barista shop feeling, and there was there was a lot of stuff going on where I was like, why do I care? If I'm here to play D&D, I do not want to be playing these things. 1, I don't run pre-published adventures that much anyway. I think I've done like 2. I've done 2. And neither of them were D&D. Neither of them. They were Mothership. Because Mothership stuff is awesome, at least as far as their adventures stuff goes. And yeah, you need to understand the tropes and whatnot. And it's weird. It was weird seeing. Now, granted, I was one of those people that really adored 4th edition, despite its many flaws. But the instant 5e hit, I was like, no, this doesn't hit the 3.5 or 4th itch. It doesn't. I've played by that point in time. I played basic. I was like, but this doesn't like 5e doesn't scratch that itch for me. What is this? I just dropped it.
No, it's a totally different game. And
yeah, oh, it was.
Grognard's Gate here's right about this. So you need to understand the tropes that make the niche what it is to even attempt to appeal to that fan base, and that works on both sides. You have to understand where the people in your niche are in their life, so that you're, say, targeting what's important to them. You're going to have some places where you can get away with, say, minimal art, minimal work and stuff, because they're past that. They're past the shiny. They're mechanical. They're game nerds. And then you're going to have people who you need to have that, and you're going to have an art style or a layout style or something that appeals, because that's kind of where it goes to. Same thing when you're looking at your different fantasy niches. I think this is a big problem with fantasy writing. It's something that I try to address with Corvid Codex, is the move towards the morally gray, the move towards the no heroes, all anti-heroes, no villains, all sympathetic stuff. That the move towards that stuff, it doesn't work, because that's not what appealed to the people who read those kind of stories. It's not elves and dragons and pointy ears and Scottish sounding dwarves and magic that appeals to the people who read fantasy. It's the epic sense of good versus evil. It's the cosmic consequences of things that are going on. It's testing those ideals in that fire. And that's why modern fantasy sucks. Like, why do you think romantasy dominates modern fantasy? Because they understand their niche is horny young women, not fantasy readers. They just put a different trapping on it to make it fresh.
Well, and it's not even like they're doing the morally great. So, like, by way of example, I watched the movie Runt today.
Mm-hmm.
It's this smaller indie film, I guess. I don't know. I found it on Amazon Prime. I thought, what the heck?
And you bought it instead of Corvid Codex.
Well, it was already on Prime. I didn't pay for it. So no. But it's a movie about bullying and about how bullying in high school can get out of hand. And the thing that they were careful with was that they were careful to track that the bullies had human motives, and that it did not make them any less monstrous. It was just that at certain points in time, you could see that the bully might have backed down. He might have not done the thing he did, and then something else gets tripped off, and he reacts as a person. The problem is that he's a terrible person. The problem isn't that he's like you or me. The problem is that he's like us until he's not. And there's actually this really, really horrifying moment inside of the movie, where, like, up until a certain point in the movie, I recommend. I liked it a lot. I don't know if anyone else would, but I really enjoyed it. Up until this particular moment in the movie, it's a question as to whether or not someone killed someone else, right? It's a question. It's an open question inside of the story. And the person who perpetrated it is not letting on until he's pushed. Somebody goes and finds his button and humiliates him. You can, like, the actor did a really good job of it. He's humiliated. He's been dragged through the mud. He didn't ask for it. The guy didn't even have it coming. He's just getting dragged through the mud. And so he turns around and he hurts the other guy by revealing, yeah, I did that. I'm the one that did that. But he does it because someone else went and picked on him for no reason whatsoever. And his response is this horribly monstrous thing. I think that's better for morally gray anyway, where people are like, oh, like, I was with you right up until the moment you did that. Like, I can see why you're upset, but did you just see what you just did? You know, and instead of being like, oh, he's sympathetic. No, what he did was not sympathetic at all. He's being a bad guy.
You got to go to a certain extreme to get to non-sympathetic here. This kind of dances on the outsides of what we're just talking about here. When women lost Barbarian and Fabio for their fantasy paperbacks, they jumped to Minotaurs. There is a middle ground somewhere that was jumped over. I think there is. It's
Twitter has destroyed me for forever. Thanks so much. I'm not
sure what that middle ground is, but I'm pretty sure that middle ground is the spiked pits that I jumped in face first to avoid the Minotaur. Not because I'm avoiding the Minotaur, but because I'm avoiding the Minotaur hand job farm. But that's what it is. I mean, look at the title of the book. Let's just change what it's actually. Let's just not lie on our title for our novel anymore. What I currently have sitting in Habit 7 is Be Well Read. We all know what that is. We all know why it's important. We all know why it's important for a game designer, because just like our buddy old Grognard's Gate here had said earlier that, no, not that one. But he was like, he was saying to, understanding the tropes and appealing to the fan base. You don't necessarily have to be in the niche to do that. But if you are not well read, you cannot understand what you're going for. And therefore you can't think in settings instead of systems. You don't understand what the feel is to be able to feel more than the real. And you can't make that loop because you don't understand what it's simulating. You like, how are you supposed to define your focus if you don't have one? You can't understand the focus. So last one we're going to touch on here before we call it an evening. And no, we're not talking about a handmaiden's Minotaur. This is one I brought up, and I hate to circle it around, and I hate even more to mention this guy again, but this is going to be, this links back to the most obvious example we all know right now is Condor DM on this one. But I said quality matters most when it's free. I see a tremendous number of games out there that get published and are garbage, and not garbage because necessarily the game's garbage. It's not necessarily the design work. They may even be following some of the other principles that we've been talking about here, but they don't bother with their layout is terrible. They don't spell check. They don't go back and double check all their sentences and stuff. They don't have anybody else read their book. Like one thing that I think is highly important is every single game designer in this space should have like a middle-aged housewife who does not play games on tap
downstairs
for the sole purpose of being able to go, hey, Betsy, come here. Read this and tell me if A, you think your kids would like it, B, you think you can teach them how to play it, and C, you understand what's going on. You don't play games. You have no priors. You probably aren't interested at all. But you can read 95%. It, you can understand how it works.
95% would fail. Utterly fail.
Well, but the thing is, if you write your game so they can understand it, all these gamers are going to pick it up like that.
Yep.
If you can, I think it was Einstein who said it. That was like, if you can't teach it to the most basic, like if you can't teach it to the regular person, then you don't understand it well enough to teach it at all.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
And when I say quality matters most when it's free, it's like if you're going to use AI art in your game, because AI art is free and you don't have the money for artists, you better take the time to make sure that your prompts are good and that your product comes out looking decent. If you're going to do your own layout, you need to make sure that you need to go back over it over and over again. You need to watch videos on it, because it's kind of this ironic thing. If I spend a bunch of money on art and the art is mediocre, nobody cares. But if the art is free and it's trash, they care.
For whatever reason.
And well, I think it's because of this. They're like, if this is something that's free, you've got like, if it's you're doing it and it doesn't cost you anything to do it better, you have no excuse to not do it better. So like I said, if you're going to use AI art, it doesn't cost you anything but time to sit there and hammer prompts through that thing over and over again to get a good cover. If you're working on the layout, it doesn't cost you anything to go back and rework that PDF over and over and over again until it comes to a level that is that you can open up and say, yeah, I can open this up and people can understand it. That doesn't cost anything. So if you don't care enough about your game to do the stuff that's free, well, nobody is going to care enough about your game to pick it up. And that's why I brought up Condor, is looking at his Neo TTRPG system, which I reviewed. And I'm very proud about the fact that I tried to be extremely fair to him when I reviewed his game. The biggest thing I said about it was,
sorry.
Yep.
Sorry, they're screaming downstairs. I must go address it.
I'm
sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm hearing.
Well, you got to make sure the house ain't burning down.
Look, there's 4 of them. It might be. Anyway, sorry to interrupt, but thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm going to finish up here. I appreciate you coming out and talking to me. Go make sure the house isn't burning down.
I smell smoke.
See you later, man. Appreciate it.
See you later. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. So we are finishing up here. But yeah, like I was saying about the Condor DM there, that last point of quality matters most when it's free. It's just that there's no excuse to do something poorly if the only thing it costs is time. And that's what he did. He put that game together, and it's like it wouldn't have taken that long for him to go back and to put that into a readable format and to reorganize things and to maybe ask a couple of people to read it for him. And it's not just Condor. We're not just going to pick on Condor here. We see this across the board. You have people like the OGGM who goes in, and his stuff is very quality work. And he will be the first one to tell you that he is very cash strapped and very low resource in the way he puts his games together, but you can't tell it because all the free stuff is done very well. And it's sad because you can go to Wizards of the Coast and see the free stuff done poorly, and we call it out every single time. So I'm going to go ahead and get to cracking on putting the actual list together and starting to make the videos on this, on the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Game Designers. Right now, I'm sitting on a list of 9 that's going to get refined down just so that everybody has them. Think in settings, not in systems. Feel is more important than real. Design, then refine. Think abductively. Define your focus. Know your niche. Be well-read. Quality matters the most when it's free. And then, of course, the one we've added in here is the man, I sure hope I can read my own writing here. I'm going to have to go back and look it up again because I sat down and I actually wrote down the one that he had added, and I can't even read my own handwriting. That's how bad I am. So we're going to add that one in, and these are all going to get kind of worked up, and hopefully we'll come up to something that any of you guys that want to try your hand at designing a game can have a better chance of success. So if I don't have anything else, I don't think I have any super chats other than our boy Mercurius, which once again, thank you very much for stopping in and throwing some support my way. Everybody else, thanks for coming out. Thanks for talking and enjoying the company and putting in your 2 cents. And I look forward to seeing you guys in 2 weeks, where apparently the next stream is going to be Yontai Casino game. We'll talk about that. So, without further ado, let's have a good one. Peace out. Evening.